Christopher LaRocca and Christina Hack are seen out for a walk. Okay, she might consider getting married for a fourth time. She better get a prenup because she's not doing well in the marriage world, folks. My kind of running joke is you kind of get like two. The first time you get divorced, maybe it's them. The second time you get divorced, maybe it's them. The third time you get divorced, I'm sorry, it's you. Hey everybody, what's happening? It's Rayford Palmer, host of the I Just Want This Done Divorce podcast, coming at you live, bravely live streaming into the universe. Today without my partner Rahul Iyer. Unfortunately, he had to be in court this morning, so that's how it goes in the divorce business. So, ladies and gentlemen, coming at you with a loaded podcast. I'm going to be handling this myself. That's because I'm a professional. So here we go. Okay. First, we're going to talk about Denise Richards and why the divorce could end in disaster for her husband. Tyreek Hill's messy divorce. We've got HGTV star might be thinking of getting married again. That from Parade magazine. Which state in the U.S. has an alarming divorce rate? When pressure undermines protection, this is a good article. This is about a postnup gone wrong and very expensively wrong. And it's instructive for us talking about postnuptial agreements because they seem pretty popular lately in our firm. We get a lot of people asking about these, like a prenup, but done after you're married. Then we've got a dating app story. We're talking about Hinge's new ad campaign. They want to get Gen Z dating. So we'll talk about that approach. And then we're going to talk a little bit about Katy too at the end of this. So stay tuned for more. You're going to love it. And here we go to another episode of I Just Want This Done. Let's talk about the first story of the day. We got Denise Richards. Why would this be a problem for her husband? So this article is from Yahoo. Hollywood sweetheart Denise Richards now in center stage in one of the most shocking celebrity divorces of 2025. Our celebrity divorce is truly shocking. I don't know if really any of them are ultimately, maybe some of them. Her estranged husband, Aaron Vipers, I'm not sure how to pronounce this, filed to dissolve their marriage, sparking a legal war that could expose secrets, upend fortunes, and reshape reputations. Okay. Abuse allegations, lavish lifestyle claims colliding. Okay, this is me quoting some of the initial part of the story. So Denise Richards says there's an explosive edge because Richards has made allegations against her husband. She said there's been a pattern of abuse and she sought a temporary restraining order, and I guess she got it. According to Richards, Vipers punched her, tracked her phone, planted hidden cameras, and threatened to kill her in front of her daughter. Okay, these are definitely don'ts, ladies and gentlemen. This kind of stuff will get you in criminal trouble potentially, and certainly will give grounds for a restraining order, probably get you thrown out of your house and bar you from talking to your children and things like that. So it's definitely something where you got to be careful and behave yourself or you're going to end up in trouble. So there's a full hearing scheduled for August 8th, which is tomorrow. We're recording this on August 7th, determining whether the restraining order becomes permanent. And let me explain, part of our show is explaining how this works. So in California, I'm guessing it's similar in Illinois, you can go in and get a temporary restraining order, which we call an emergency order protection. Very quickly, you can go in without notice to the other person. So if you're the victim or the alleged victim, you can go apply for a restraining order. You have a brief hearing with the judge where you testify under oath about the basic facts. The court then may or may not enter the order, and it's only good for 21 days. And the other person, they get served by the sheriff with the restraining order. They need to obey it, and it's police enforceable if they violate it. Usually it's a no contact order, don't contact the children, don't contact the spouse. A lot of times if there's firearms involved, they may have the guns taken away from somebody. So there's a number of things, and your mileage may vary depending on your state. But the idea is they want to balance the interest of protecting people versus the notice and the constitutional rights of the alleged abusers to defend themselves. So there's a short-term thing where the order applies. Then there's a chance to move in and have a full hearing either at the 21-day mark in Illinois or quicker. You can actually accelerate it. I'm guessing it's similar here. Sounds like she got the emergency order and the full hearing is tomorrow or on the 8th of August. And Mr. Vipers will be able to defend himself and have a lawyer there and have witnesses and all that. And the court may decide to extend the order, modify the order, or throw it out entirely after he's heard a chance for both sides to speak. Temporary orders are routinely issued. The judges usually exercise caution, and they tend to issue them more often than not to be on the safe side. They may not last, though. A lot of times they get worked out by agreement between the lawyers and the parties. They reach a settlement or temporary settlement. They work out some kind of temporary court order that's less than the full restraining order. So they said, we've got a large income disparity between Denise Richards and her husband. This is interesting because they talked to a divorce lawyer. I'm not aware of who this person is, but that lawyer said, her name's Amy Lass, with the abuse allegations and massive income disparity, the courts will be looking very closely at who gets what and who's telling the truth. Well, I don't know that. I don't know California divorce law, and I'm not sure how domestic abuse impacts division of assets or alimony. In Illinois, it doesn't really have any effect. So I'm not sure what the deal is in California, and your mileage may vary, so always consult with a divorce lawyer in your state for specifics. This is really interesting because the attorney said that if the court finds Richards' claims credible, the husband could lose any right to spousal support. That's interesting because that's not the case in Illinois. So it says domestic abuse is a game changer in California family law. And that's, again, state. Our divorce laws are state by state, folks. So you have to talk to a lawyer in your jurisdiction. So this may be a bigger mistake than just getting in trouble with the court and having the court think of you poorly, not, damaging your credibility and that kind of thing, and maybe impacting parenting. This may impact the financial settlement, according to this lawyer. Fibers is demanding a significant portion of Richard's reported $250,000 monthly income. I don't know what Denise is making money off of other than older things, but I'm not tuned in all the time to the holiday scene. He detailed expenses with his filings, including $25,500 a month for groceries and dining alone. Remember, folks, these people live in a different universe. Okay. Despite portraying himself as financially strapped, this is quoting the story, he still wants Richards to bankroll his luxurious habits. According to the attorney, California law is not on his side. California law allows for spousal support when one spouse cannot maintain the marital lifestyle, but it doesn't reward bad behavior. Okay, well, we'll see. Time will tell. Apparently, Richards' independent success from OnlyFans earnings. Okay, now we know. Reality TV roles and endorsements. The filings highlight Pfeiffer's unusual demands to keep certain assets. He wants sole ownership of his Shelby GT 500 muscle car, a motorcycle, and a collection of power tools. Well, I guess, that's not unusual for people to name sometimes specific assets, and a lot of times they'll identify premarital assets and carve out certain ones they say they want for sure. Remember these initial pleadings, these initial documents filed with the court, it's a lot of positioning and posturing, and it doesn't mean that's ultimately what's going to happen, folks. So, and then the attorney points out, unless those items were acquired before the marriage or outlined in a prenup, they're community property, which we call marital property in Illinois, but California is a community property state. So it's all that stuff that's community property is on the table to be divided between the parties, of course. Now, we don't know what the deal is with the prenup. I don't see a lot of detail here. They have no biological children. Apparently, they were working on adoption for a child, but that's not going to go forward, I'm sure. So anyway, we'll see. As we do, we follow these cases over time, but we'll let you know. Unfortunately for these folks, this one is not sounding amicable, and it looks like a battle. And that means that a lot of these things will come out in public in court pleadings unless they work out settlements. So we will keep tabs on this and let you know. Okay, next up, we've got to talk about Tyreek Hill's divorce. His estranged wife blasts him for trying to silence and intimidate her. All the links to this stuff, of course, are in the show notes. Okay, Tyreek Hill and Katy continue to trade jabs through their divorce proceedings. Vaccaro's accused the Dolphins star of trying to silence and intimidate her, according to a filing by her attorneys. This was apparently in response to Hill's motion requesting a gag order on their legal battle. Okay, so people have free speech rights, of course, according to our Constitution. So what is a gag order? Depending on what's going on, a court may or may not issue a court order limiting people's ability to go to the press. Courts are very circumspect about this because they don't like restricting people's free speech rights. So it has to be pretty extreme to have a court order somebody to be silent in the media or to not make public comments is a fairly extreme court order. And you certainly, I would say, never see it in ordinary divorce proceedings. Occasionally, you'll see court records sealed if they include things about minor children and things of that nature where privacy makes sense. But even then, courts really don't like sealing records, especially, I'll speak about my state. In Illinois, they really don't like sealing records without good cause. And because there's a public interest in those records being public, and there's free speech interests. So there's all these balancing interests the court has to weigh. So ordering somebody to not talk is challenging. And of course, the other side says that shows a pattern of coercive control by Hill, that they're accusing him of being controlling and that this gag order is just part of that. So they say, he wants to silence the wife's lawyers while his own pleadings disparage and denigrate the wife. Well, I don't know what the pleadings say. Apparently in Hill's June 23rd filing, they asked the judge to keep her from making denigrating, disparaging, and uncivil statements that may harm his reputation in future filings. Well, that's kind of challenging because you're asking a court to prevent it before it happens rather than remedy it after it happens. So now with a public figure like Tyreek Hill, he has some claim here that his reputation may be damaged. His reputation has value. If you're a public figure, having things that damage your rep is going to literally damage the value of marital assets because your reputation and your brand is theoretically, in this case, a marital asset. His ability to generate income yields support to the children and support to the spouse. So there is some portion here that's truthful where you can see what they're trying to accomplish. But courts are very leery about preventing things that haven't happened yet, or, they're more willing to remedy something that has occurred where they can get their hands on it rather than just blanket ban something that says denigrating, disparaging, and uncivil statements. Well, that's a broad brush. What does that mean? And if she's going to say negative things about him that are truthful, they might be denigrating and disparaging and uncivil, but absolutely true and relevant to the divorce case. So that's a problem. So I'm not sure that the judge is going to be willing to grant something like that. So she's alleging that he hasn't paid temporary spousal or child support, hasn't provided exclusive use of the marital residence. I don't know Florida divorce law. Maybe someone out there can chime in on this in the comments, but I'm not sure what's required. But in Illinois, you don't get exclusive use of the marital residence. You've got to live there with your spouse. Now, maybe he's got other places to live, and this is just something the person that his spouse wants. And certainly she can ask for it. But in Illinois, the court's not going to make you leave. Certainly you have no other place to go. And I'm guessing Mr. Hill's got other places to live, or certainly could afford to live somewhere else temporarily. But it's by no means a requirement typically. And talking about temporary attorney's fees, what they call pendente lite or pendent light, that just means temporary attorney's fees. She's looking for that. They're not agreeing to a time-sharing schedule other than 50-50. These are things that her lawyers are saying Tyreek Hill hasn't agreed to yet. Hill is in the fourth season with the Dolphins and says he's accusing her of stealing money and fraudulently obtaining access to financial accounts. This is not me saying it. This is in the article. To make unauthorized transfers to herself, her business, and her mother. This is according to the Daily Mail article. So they're in the middle of a heated battle, and you can see, we've talked about this in the past, but when people are fighting, this stuff quickly becomes public. And so when you see very high-profile people do this quietly, you see like Bezos divorce, you see Bill Gates, there was nothing in public because they kept all of their stuff behind closed doors in mediation and between their attorneys. So ugly stuff didn't spill out into the public eye like it is here. Looking at these allegations, they're just messy. They got married in November 2023. They've only been married like a year or two. Hill has 3 children with his ex-fiance, twins and a son, multiple alleged children from other relationships, this article says. This is basically mudslinging back and forth, and the court is going to be sorting all this stuff out. It's just not going to be a quick and easy solution here. Moving on to the next story. This is a good one. HGTV star might be thinking of getting married again. Who is it, you ask? Christopher LaRocca and Christina Hack are seen out for a walk. Okay, she might consider getting married for a 4th time. I guess 4th time's the charm. She better get a prenup because she's not doing well in the marriage world, folks. My kind of running joke is you kind of get like 2. The first time you get divorced, maybe it's them. The second time you get divorced, maybe it's them. The third time you get divorced, I'm sorry, it's you. Either you're just not good at picking them, or you're the problem, or some combination of those. Think about you're the 4th guy in line. You want to marry this person. Where are we going with this? Christina Hack might consider getting married for a 4th time. That's what Heather Ray El-Musa has gathered. Hack was first linked to Christopher LaRocca in late 2024. This is an article in Parade. Just months after she finalized her divorce from Josh Hall. In a recent interview, El-Musa, who is married to Hack's ex-husband, Tarek El-Musa, this is all this HGTV stuff going in circles, said she thinks the 4th marriage is on the table. And she says, if so, it will be some time. She doesn't want to rush into anything. Oh, do tell. So She says they've been together for quite a while. I've really enjoyed every time I've spent time with him. It's the first guy she's been together with I've really liked. Tyreek and him get along on just a guy level and hanging out in business. He's a real man. I think it comes down to that. Well, okay. Hack was married to Tyreek from 2009 to 2016. Then she married Aunt Anstead, but the two split in June 2021. So it's just like, come on, what's going on here? The Christina on the co-star has been pretty adamant about not wanting to get married for a fourth time, telling Jeff Lewis on the finale of The Flip-Off that no more marriages were in her future. My suggestion is that's probably for the best. So, unless you want to keep financing divorce lawyers. But if you do get married, do get that prenup, please. What can you say? Okay, next. Which state in the U.S. has an alarming divorce rate? This sounds kind of like clickbait because they have these titles. Instead of just telling you the state that has the divorce rate, they tell you which state has the alarming thing. Well, I click through for you to get you the gist so you don't have to spend your time in dead-end stories. Well, not surprising, Nevada has the highest divorce rate. So average, some of the lowest divorce rates, interestingly enough, like Illinois, it says in this article, some of the lowest, 2 divorces per 1,000 people. Western states, particularly Nevada, have disproportionately high divorce rates, bucking the national trend. According to data, Nevada held a divorce rate 68% higher than the national average. Well, you're probably thinking, well, I know why that is. Like, all those people get quickie marriages in Nevada. And, I've heard that it's easy to get divorced in Nevada. Well, you're right. Residency requirements in Nevada are very lenient. You can be a legal resident in as little as 6 weeks, facilitating quick divorces for out-of-state people. No-fault divorce laws are very streamlined, allowing either party to file on grounds of incompatibility without extensive litigation. And they cite the marriage culture in Vegas where 70,000 weddings take place every year, which encourage spontaneous marriages. These quick decisions, the story says, frequently influenced by alcohol, limited acquaintance, that's one way of saying it, or the thrill of tourism, are statistically more likely to result in divorce. Yeah, well, I'd say so. So no real shocker. Other states are tougher. You have to be a resident for a longer period of time in other states, like 90 days or whatever, in order to get divorced. And some of them have a separation requirement that says you have to be separated for a period of days or months before you can get a divorce. And the restrictions are tougher. So people can divorce shop and go to states like Nevada to get a quickie divorce. We'll even go to the Philippines, believe it or not. That's been known as a haven for quickie divorces for U.S. folks. I didn't know that until several years ago when I got involved in a case where one of the parties literally ran to the Philippines. And I think you can literally do a divorce vacation, and it's advertised by their lawyers. You go I want to say it's 2 weeks or some very short amount of time. And I haven't looked into this in a while, and you can get a divorce. So it's not as easy as I'm making it sound, but it can be. So there's this kind of divorce tourism going on here. And the residency requirement, believe it or not, in Nevada was reduced to 6 weeks in 1931. That's way before most states had liberalized their divorce laws, period. So it's pretty interesting. And it talks about how the filing to decree can be done in 10 days to 2 weeks. And legal costs tend to be lower with the divorce lawyers. They're advertising very inexpensive fixed fee divorces. So there you have it, folks. But it's not, you can't just run over there and get divorced necessarily. So understand there's more involved. If you have a spouse here with children and you try to run over there and get divorced, well, they're going to file in, let's say in Illinois, and challenge that. And it's likely that the court is going to throw out the case in Nevada, especially if the children have been living here, and the case is going to be handled in Illinois. So it's not as easy as it seems, but it is. This explains why it's the divorce capital of the United States. Okay, next topic to talk about today this is a really interesting one. Getting into kind of our hardcore topic or, material topic about divorce. We dig into some of it when we talk about these celebrity divorces, but this one is about postnuptial agreements. And remember, folks, I've said this on social media many, many times. A prenup is not a postnup. A prenup is not a postnup. A prenup is not a postnup. Or a postnup is not a prenup. A postnup is not a prenup. Why? A prenup is a document that basically says what happens when we get divorced. And the consideration for it is getting married. You can have a very one-sided prenup, and it's binding provided there's no undue duress, and it has to be extreme duress, meaning like pressure on the person to sign. And you need full disclosure of assets, liabilities, income, and expenses. Generally, if you have those two things, your prenup will be binding even if it's very one-sided. And I've heard rooms full of divorce lawyers freak out about this and complain about it. And then I see people on social media saying, oh, prenups can be easily overturned. They're not worth anything. Well, I got news for you. That's not true. I've had rooms of lawyers who are very experienced divorce lawyers sitting there in a seminar down in Miami one time complaining about how prenups are hard to throw out. So they can be challenged, and many times people will take a stab at challenging them, but most of the time they lose those challenges. So all you have to do is get married to make the prenup stick. And your option always is don't get married. That's why that works that way. Nobody has to get married. So if you don't like the prenup, you don't get married. And people say, well, I don't know, that's not my choice. I want to get married. Well, okay, that's you saying that. That's what you want. But nobody's got a gun to your head telling you to get married. So the rationale really is, well, just don't get married. Okay, so moving on to postnups, you're already married, so the law of the state where you live protects you. The Marriage Act and the divorce laws of your state already provide protection in the event of a divorce. So a good postnup does two things. It deals with what happens when you're still married because you're not getting divorced. So what do we do now with our financial stuff while we're still married? And there's no parenting stuff in a postnup because you're not divorced. And you can't predetermine custody and visitation. Court won't allow it. I'm pretty sure that's true across all 50 states. It's all financial. So what are we doing while we're still married? You can divide assets while you're married in a postnup. You can say, this bucket, these things are yours. These things are mine. This stuff is marital or community property. You can do that. And then you can say, part two of the postnup of a good one is, okay, what happens if we do get divorced? How are we dealing with it in that case? Okay, what are we doing with, you keep the assets we allocated to you, I keep the stuff allocated to me, and here's how we're going to divide the community or marital property. And here's how we're paying for attorney's fees and blah, blah, blah. These other less important but significant things. So the twist on a postnup, though, is you've got to have full disclosure, so you can't hide the ball. It can't be unconscionable, meaning it's got to be reasonable to both people at that time. It has to be fair. Like a divorce decree or a divorce settlement agreement, a court has to find that it's equitable, which to you and me means, to everyday people, means fair. So equitable does not necessarily mean equal. Many times it is, but it has to be within the bounds of fairness. So what does that mean? Well, that means that a postnup has to provide a fair trade for things that are being given away or kept. So you already have a right, like under Illinois law, you'd have a right to half of the marital assets, alimony, whatever our statutory maintenance is, whatever state law provides for that. And then child support. Well, we're not going to deal with child support, but we're talking about, because we don't deal with kid stuff here, but division of assets and spousal support. You're already promised that stuff in the law anyway. So if you're making trades, if you're just pre-allocating those things, like each of you are taking half, let's say, and then figuring out how you're going to pay for expenses, that's not going to be problematic. But anything that's lopsided, or let's say that the alimony law normally provides that if you looked at the numbers, you would get, I'm just making up a number, $10,000 a month for 10 years. Okay. And the postnup says you're going to get $100,000 lump sum. And that's a lot less than that. That's going to be problematic for the person that wanted that provision, because let's assume there's no fair trade for that. They didn't buy that. So a postnup requires fair consideration. And that consideration is the stuff you're giving in exchange for the various trade-offs. It can't just be a one-sided thing. So all that is to say, let's lead into this story now. So the story is really interesting because it talks about this in real life. So this is actually out of Great Britain, but it's the same situation. Our laws are kind of similar in some ways. So it was a $230 million pound divorce. So it says, what does it teach us about postnups? So this is interesting. A recent headline-grabbing divorce settlement valued at over 230 million pounds sterling has served as more than just tabloid fodder. This is me quoting the story. Ranking as the third highest financial award in English divorce history, the case shines a spotlight on the fragile legal footing of postnups, especially when one party exerts dominance over the other. So people, if you're the financially moneyed spouse, high net worth, high income, ultra high net worth, and you want a postnup, you got to be very careful and get a skilled attorney to prepare this for you. You can't muscle the other person into a postnup that disadvantages them. It will bite you in the rear end. So here's what happened. Couple was married 20 years before a postnup was drawn up in 2023. Heavily skewed in the husband's favor. The terms were presumed by him to be enforceable. I'm not sure what lawyer told him that. Yet the judge took a very different stance. It was found the agreement had not been reached freely, but under undue influence involving manipulative tactics, decided to compromise the wife's independence and her relationship with the legal team. So this is a little different. We'll look into the details here, but this is also another weakness here. If there's a lack of disclosure, so they lie to you about the assets, they don't give you the full information about how much money is sitting there in the marriage or how much their business is worth. They tell you it's crap and it's doing terribly, but it's not true, or income or any of those things, and you reasonably rely on that information, then you've got a basis to overturn the agreement. Similarly, if there's undue influence, and it sounds like there may be here, you don't want to interfere with your spouse's legal team. You want to make sure if you're doing a bulletproof prenup or postnup, you want to make sure they have full access to good legal counsel so this doesn't become an argument. So you may think, oh, it's my advantage that she has a bad lawyer, or I'm going to hurry my spouse into signing, or my fiance to sign something without a lawyer. You're just shooting yourself in the foot. So here's the interesting thing. The court highlighted the husband's deliberate attempts to disrupt his wife's trust in her attorney, a move that undermined any claim the agreement was reached with informed consent. The conduct proved costly in more ways than one. There's a long-standing legal principle they mentioned here for English law. Any financial agreement must be rooted in fairness and autonomy. If either party uses coercion, intimidation, or manipulation, the validity of that agreement is weakened. Yeah, that's pretty much true in the U.S. also. In high-value cases, this is quoting the story, it's not unusual for the wealthier party to attempt to direct the terms of a postnup to suit their own interests. Well, sure, that's why they want the postnup. This can take the form of dismissive remarks about lawyers, suggestions that legal costs are a waste of shared resources. This happens all the time. It happens in litigation too. I have a case right now where the spouse is trying to undermine our client by saying, your lawyer's dumb, and bad-mouthing us and my co-counsel, thinking that's going to do anything. Certainly isn't the first time, and the person sees right through it. So trying to drive a wedge between the person and their lawyers is old as the hills. So in this case, though, it's an ordinary kind of generic tactic you see once in a while in an ongoing divorce. But you have to be really careful about that when you're doing an agreement like this, because the person already has the protections of the divorce statute, and you're asking them to trade stuff away. So it says here, identifying coercion isn't always straightforward. And then they mentioned the family courts are highly attuned to power dynamics in relationships. Yeah, sure they are, particularly where wealth disparity exists. So this is really interesting. And it points out, the article says that people can sign agreements that may not necessarily be to their financial advantage, but the judge will later expect that there's evidence the person fully understood what they were signing. When they were signing away their rights, you've got to be able to show there was no undue duress. What is a credible, well-formed postnup? Well, like I said, shouldn't be undue duress, should be full disclosure, plenty of time to understand it before they sign it and review all the supporting documents, and basically have an equitable deal. It doesn't always have to be 50-50, but the person has to understand what they're giving up, and there should be some logical rationale about why they would do that. Word to the wise on postnuptial agreements, but this really illustrates postnups and how they have some weaknesses if they're not carefully, not only prepared, but the world surrounding the postnup has to be in balance also. Okay, next story. This is good. We always love our dating app stories. By the way, doing this live, so no breaks. We're not stopping for anything. All gas, no breaks, folks. So this is from Hinge, and they said they've got this No Ordinary Love campaign. They're featuring the love stories of real couples who met on Hinge, written, though, by accomplished current writers like Hunter Harris or Tomasz Jogrowski, which is sort of interesting. They're kind of dramatizing real stories of people who met on Hinge. And they're hoping, they've been inspired by Gen Z creators and audiences flocking to book clubs, book talk, and tech-centric platforms like Substack. They're seeing this sort of flight by the younger generation to these platforms. And that the stories apparently went viral, and Hinge reported they got an increase in interest in their brand. They said it was a 10% increase in brand consideration in the US. So they published a series on their Substack called No Ordinary Love. And the content about Hinge has really been organic or produced by their team on normal social media platforms with various creators. So they're finding that they've created this dedicated space for these stories has been useful, and that they're going to print it as a limited edition hardcover. That's kind of cool. I mean, no hate here in trying to market your business and showing people a different view that this thing actually works, because the beef about dating apps is that they don't work. So what do they need? They need success stories and social proof. And what better way to do it than to have people tell their real stories about how they met on this app, and having hip contemporary writers write their stories is kind of cool. So good on them. But these apps are going to struggle. I think they're going to continue to struggle because there's the human element that's missing. We talk about often. Photos don't do it. Even video clips don't quite do it. The problem is when you're forced to be visual, we don't make the best choices, and we don't get a feel for a person in 10 pictures or 5 photos or whatever that are filtered, what have you. And the best way is to meet somebody in their world, like in their environment. And there is something Rahul mentioned in the last show that I think was really well stated when he said, there's paralysis by too much choice. When you're seeing people on a dating app, you get sort of fooled that there's 10,000 fish in the sea or whatever. And it's really sort of yes, if you're willing to travel and move far away. But really, if you're working and you've got a career building and you're in a particular environment, there's maybe a couple thousand or 1,000 people, where, depending on how big your town is, there's a fairly small group of people that are in your sort of personal Venn diagram that go places you go, live somewhere near you, and that would be valid dating partners for you. So we're sort of fooled by the abundance of choice on these apps. And then some people are just there for entertainment. It's like they love the attention. They like to swipe on pictures, and they're just doing it to kill time. They're not looking for serious relationships or whatever. So there's a lot of static and white noise there that you cut through when you go in real life. And that's why we're just urging people to do IRL dating stuff and go meet real people in your real environment. Say hi to somebody at the gym or at the place you get coffee or whatever, and make the effort to approach somebody. Just say hi. It's not creepy to say hello to somebody. So get out there and meet people, As one of our surf instructors said, go out there and be somebody. So do your best. But you're never going to meet people if you don't try. And you just have to say hi. And the one thing my dad told me when I was a kid, what's the worst thing that can happen? They say they're not interested. Fine. Move on to the next person. No big deal. That's it. So there you go. Dating advice too from the world's best divorce lawyer. That would be me. And your favorite neighborhood divorce lawyer. Okay. One more dating story we can't miss. Katy Perry. What's up with Katy and Justin Trudeau? Okay, that was not on my bingo card for this month. The singer's rumored relationship with Canada's former prime minister follows in the footsteps of stars like Rosario Dawson and Elizabeth Taylor. Okay, that's an older reference lost on younger viewers for Elizabeth Taylor, folks. Katy Perry is rumored to be in a new relationship with former Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. The two are spotted having dinner together at Le Violon in Montreal in late July, with an eyewitness telling TMZ the rumored couple had drinks and could be seen sharing many dishes together. Just a few days later, photos of Trudeau at Perry's concert, oh, there you go, there's a tell, at Montreal's Bell Centre were posted on social, in which the politician could be seen smiling alongside his 16-year-old daughter, Ella Grace. In other footage from the concert, Trudeau can be seen singing along to Perry's hit song Dark Horse. Well, there you go. Rumors of the relationship came following Perry's breakup with actor Orlando Bloom. The former couple dated for a year from 16 to 17 and reconnected at 18, got engaged in 2019, and had a baby, but called off the engagement in June 2025. That has got to be one of the longest engagements. Don't get me started on engagements that are too long. Long story short, if the engagement is longer than a year, you got problems. Don't at me. I know it's true. If you drag it out forever, then what's the point of getting married? So then, anyway, Trudeau and Perry were spotted out together. The Onion shared an Instagram post with a fake photo of Bloom and German Chancellor Angela Merkel out for dinner together. So anyway, that was a gag, of course, from the Onion, but you get it. So anyway, that's your celebrity divorce news, and who knows? So Katie's had a habit of picking them before with the British comedy star. That didn't go so well either. Anyway, I want to tell you a couple things. One, I'm the author of I Just Want This Done, How Smart, Successful People Get Divorced Without Losing Their Kids, Money, and Minds. Available on Amazon, Kindle, Audible, and where all great ebooks are sold. You can get it on your Nook, too, and things like that. Hardcover available at Barnes & Noble. And check out, this is our podcast, of course, is the I Just Want This Done pod. Our episodes, we go back 33 more episodes, and we cover divorce topics. If you don't want to hear the celebrity stuff, there is a chapter marker for every part of these podcasts. You can go back to all the previous episodes and find some topic that interests you, whether it's prenups or divorce tactics, understanding strategy, high net worth divorce, any number of things we've covered in previous episodes. And just skip to that and listen to that section of the pod to get an understanding of what's going on in these situations to help you better understand what's going on in your own situation. And I'm the managing partner of STG Divorce Law in Chicago. We work throughout the suburbs also. We're one of the top-rated divorce attorneys or divorce firms in Chicago. We have an awesome team. Look us up at stglawfirm.com. We've got a free private Facebook group, the Illinois Divorce Support Network. Free to join, free to post questions. We answer your questions, no charge. You can post anonymously. And now announcing the high net worth divorce subreddit that we've created on Reddit, where people can ask their high net worth divorce related questions, get them answered. We can give referrals. We're just there to help. So no obligation. You can create an anonymous account on Reddit and post questions. Spread the word about it. We just started this thing and we're just looking to help people out. So I wanted to get involved with Reddit, and that's where a lot of people are. I want to go where you guys are to help you to the best of our ability. So check us out. You can find me at Rayford Palmer on Instagram and TikTok. Our law firm, SCG Divorce Law, has got a page on LinkedIn. We're on YouTube. We have a full YouTube page full of all kinds of video content, informational, educational stuff about Illinois divorce. Then, of course, there's the podcast on all the audio platforms and also on YouTube. Thanks a lot for listening. Please send us any questions, comments. We always enjoy the comments and the feedback that lets us know if we're on the right track. We're just here to educate and inform you about the world of family law and divorce to the best of our ability. So thanks very much, everybody, for listening, and everyone have a great day.